Childhood. King Abdullah bin Abdulaziz Abdurrahman al Saud was born in Riyadh and brought up under his father, King Abdulaziz, may God rest his soul. He learned from his father, his first example, wisdom, skills, and know how to tackle various issues. King Abdullah bin Abdulaziz benefited from the experience of his father in the field of governance, political administration, and leadership. Besides his achievement to famous intellectual and scholars positions, King Abdullah serves as President of the Council Minister Chairman of the Supreme Economic Council, Chairman of the Supreme Council for Petroleum and Mineral Affairs, Chairman of the Supreme Council for Persons with Disabilities.
أعاهد الله ثم أعاهدكم أن أتخذ القرآن دستوري والإسلام منهجي، وأن يكون شغلي الشاغل إحقاق الحق وإرساء العدل وخدمة المواطنين كافة بلا تفرقة تفرقة تفرقة.
Well, first of all, it's a great occasion to celebrate the accession to the throne of His Majesty King Abdullah, the custodian of the two holy mosques. It's a time to celebrate that occasion, because what he has done since he became king would have taken others perhaps many more years to accomplish. This is only his 8th year now that we are celebrating, and yet if you look on all fields of endeavor, internal and external, he scored tremendous successes and achieved many accomplishments. If I can name a few as examples of that. Internally, of course, even before he became king, he initiated the national dialogue, which puts before the Saudi people topics for discussion that are important for the development of the society, whether it is the role of women in society, education, religious speech, terrorism, you name it. Over the last 9, and this now we're going to be in the 10th year next year, all the important and perhaps even controversial topics that would affect any society have been placed before the Saudi people for themselves, not only to discuss, but to offer recommendations and ideas on how to deal with these issues. And alhamdulillah, yani if you take, for example, the role of women, that was a topic for the national dialogue some years ago. And that topic went from village to village, from town to town, and then was centralized in a discussion group that reached recommendations on the role of women in society. And what happened after that is that the king, in his wisdom and graciousness, not only took over that issue and made it real, but gave women all of the rights that they legitimately deserve, that include being elected to the municipal councils, not only as candidates, but also to elect the candidates, and equally to be members of the Shura Council, let alone the other aspects of women's participation in society, whether in education, in work, and the various endeavors that give her her rightful place in the society. And his famous description of women as our mothers, our sisters, and our daughters and our wives and so on, is still in the minds of Saudis. So that is just one example of where the national dialogue started from and led to in the case of women. Other things equally took their course of action in the national dialogue. If you look at development, economic and otherwise, the Higher Economic Council that was established even before the king became king by himself is setting the stage for Saudi Arabia not only to develop in terms of economics, but to set examples for other countries to follow. As a sign of that accomplishment, briefly, in the last economic depression that afflicted the world community 5 years ago, the kingdom was one of the few countries in the world that was the exception to that depression and recession, because of the wise decisions undertaken by the king through the advice of his ministers and bureaucratic departments. So there is another example of a great accomplishment that safeguarded the kingdom's economic well-being at a time when the whole world basically collapsed on itself. So people around the world are looking to the kingdom as a pace setter and as an example setter for them. And if you look in external affairs, the king's tremendously important and audacious and very brave and courageous call for dialogue between religions and cultures. If you remember, he started that call by bringing all of the Muslim leadership throughout the world from all Muslim sects in the holy city of Mecca in June.
Organization of Islamic Conference.
Not only the Islamic Conference,
Yes.
but all representatives of sectarian leadership in the Muslim world in 2008 in June. And they met in Mecca, and he called on them to support him in reaching out to the rest of the world in terms of culture and religion. And they delegated him to do that. That was the sign of confidence that they had in him. And he took that call to Spain, where the King of Spain equally hosted a similar conference, but this one that called for the presence of all representatives of religions and cultures. Buddhists, Shintos, Hindus, Christians, Jews, and all subdivisions thereof were represented in Madrid. And again, the king called on them to make this call a permanent working establishment that can bring the world's people together according to their beliefs and their cultures. And they delegated him to do that. So he took that call to the United Nations, where the Secretary General of the United Nations called for a special conference, summit actually, of leaders from all over the world. And in New York in November 2008, the session was held at the United Nations headquarters in New York, where 65 heads of state and prime ministers and other representatives from all over the world, representing all countries of the world, gathered and were addressed by the king for this dialogue between cultures and civilizations and religions. And the result of that was that the United Nations General Assembly equally supported this call and encouraged the setting up of a center for this effort, and the Austrian government graciously agreed to host the headquarters of that center in Vienna.
Yeah.
And last year, if you remember, there was a celebration where the foreign minister represented the king at the inauguration of this center with the presence of Spain and Austria as co-hosts for the center in Vienna. In the meantime, even before the king made that call, he had already reached out to leaders in the west and in the east and in the north and in the south, including the Pope of the Catholic Church. And there was a meeting between the king and the Pope in Rome where these issues were discussed. So that was just one thing that the king did that touched all of humanity. And if you look at Arab and Muslim affairs, in all of these affairs, you will see that the king has left his mark. If you remember, even before he became king in 2002, he made his famous Abdullah Peace Initiative, which was then adopted by the Arab League countries and then after that by the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, to bring peace between Israel and the Arab world. And that call was accepted by the Arabs and the Muslims. Unfortunately, the Israelis have not accepted it. But the rest of the world has expressed support for it. So, from that aspect alone, this was a great accomplishment that King Abdullah established, not just for the kingdom, but for all the Arab and Muslim world. Another effort of the king was, of course, to provide economic and development support to all Arab countries, no matter where and no matter who.
The kingdom of humanity and the king.
Absolutely. And from Lebanon to Palestine, to Jordan, to Egypt, to Sudan, wherever, to Yemen, North Africa, and alas, you mentioned Syria. The situation in Syria is really one of tremendous tragedy and a challenge to the humanity of people. Here again, the king was in the lead in calling at the initial stages on Bashar al-Assad to respond to the demands and the legitimate calls of his people for freedom. Unfortunately, the Syrian president did not pay heed to the king's call. So the king didn't let it rest there. He took it first to the GCC countries, where the fellow GCC countries equally supported that call. And then they took it to the Arab League. And through efforts, multiple levels of effort were put in to stop the fighting in Syria, without any response from the Syrian president. And then the whole issue was taken to the United Nations Security Council, where unfortunately the Russians and the Chinese vetoed the resolution calling for the establishment of an interim government in Syria that would enter into negotiations with the opposition, and so on. So in all these fields, I just gave you few examples of internal and external accomplishments of the king. And if I were to continue to name all the accomplishments, I'm sure it will take us days and days of discussion to do that.
فنحن لا نعتز بشيء بعد الإسلام مثل اعتزازنا بخدمة الحرمين الشريفين.
أشهد أن لا إله إلا أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على حي على الفلاح حي على
Upon the order of the custodian of the two holy mosques, King Abdullah bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, a clock has been constructed atop Tower Number 5 of the King Abdulaziz Endowment Project. The Mecca Clock Tower is offered as a gift from the custodian and provides new services to the entire Muslim world, and in particular to the holy city of Mecca, the direction of prayer to Muslims throughout the world. The custodian has been personally involved in each step of the development.
لا نعتز بشيء بعد الإسلام مثل اعتزازنا بخدمة الحرمين الشريفين.
The Mecca Clock Project is built to the highest safety standards, with a face size of more than 65 meters in diameter. The Mecca clock is the biggest clock in the world. Standing above 400 meters above ground, the clock is visible from a distance of more than 8 kilometers and serves as a breathtaking addition to the holy city. The tower clock is a masterpiece of engineering and design. It has been developed by leading German and Swiss engineers together with a team of specialists from all over the world. The clock was switched on for the first time in Ramadan 1431. The middle of August 2010 Gregorian. With the grace of Allah, all construction was finished within several months. The clock will be the host of Mecca time, an independent time signal, which is then spread worldwide. The Mecca clock tower has 4 clock faces. The front and back faces measure 83 by 67 meters. The 2 side faces measure 77 by 47 meters. The face of the Mecca clock is over 35 times larger than the face of Big Ben in London. The body of the Mecca clock is 251 meters tall, whereas the top of Big Ben was 35 meters tall. In total, the Mecca clock tower stands 607 meters in height, making it the second tallest building to date. This is more than 6 times higher than Big Ben and almost twice the height of the Eiffel Tower in Paris. After both day and nighttime testing, it was concluded that a black-on-white contrast was most visible during the day, while at night, a white-on-green contrast provided the sharpest image. Specifically developed LED technology was incorporated due to its brightness, durability, and ease of control. To achieve this exceptional quality of nighttime lighting, some 2 million LED lights are used. Each aspect of the lighting system was successfully tested on the quarter clock test construction. During the development of the tower's exterior, LED media screens were added to the facade on all 4 sides. These exceptionally bright LEDs are visible both day and night. The screens are 11 meters high. They measure 17 meters on the front and back of the tower and 45 meters on the sides. A number of safety precautions were necessary to protect the electric components of the clock from lightning damage. Therefore, a specialized lightning protection system was developed for the clock tower. 3 highly sensitive field mills constantly measure the strength of the electric field in the atmosphere around the tower. If a critical field value is exceeded, 20 retractable lightning rods in the clock faces are activated. They automatically extend to a length of 5 meters. The clock is now protected from being struck by lightning bolts. The conductors also extend in the event of a power loss. A further 800 fixed rods are installed in other areas of the clock tower. Every hour, on the hour, time is announced by an acoustic signal. This signal begins with the takbir, followed by the number of drum beats that corresponds to the hour of the day. For example, 4 drum beats indicate that the time is 4 o'clock. 4 green lasers are installed in the base of the crescent. Each laser produces a powerful ray of light that stretches to infinity. Each laser is 400 watts in power and will be visible within a range of approximately 30 kilometers around the tower. During religious occasions, such as the beginning of the Hijri months, and during holidays, 24 10-kilowatt beacon lights project light beams more than 10 kilometers into the sky around Mecca.
King Abdullah represents a balanced modernization with our Islamic value. He had countless initiatives that he started since he took over the government, and one of those vital initiatives that he took, and what I call it a gusty initiative that nobody have done and nobody had the will to do it, was the interfaith dialogue. It all started in 2007 when the custodian of the 2 holy mosques visited the Pope in the Vatican, and he sat and he talked about how we bring all the religions together, Christianity and Judaism and Islam, and to miss out everything that could affect this religion or to be politicized, to be used by other nations and people. In June 2008,
King Abdullah decided to bring all the Muslim leaders from all over the world to Mecca to sit and talk how they become as a one voice, how to be united as a one voice to speak to the Christian faith and to the Judaism faith. All these things that have done since 2007 and 2008 in bringing all the religions together and to talk as one voice and to put all the people of the world closer to each other. King Abdullah had the vision from way long time ago. He always thought earlier in his age that this world is be unified, or all religions be unified by education, and education through religion. And that's his major belief when he came to the thought, and he decided with the country of Spain and Austria to host the first interfaith dialogue in Spain. And it started to be called King Abdullah Interfaith Dialogue. Since that time, he received so many people from, of course, the Muslim faith, from the Christian faith, and from the Jewish faith. And all of them sat around a round table, and they decided that they're going to take this initiative even broadly with the vision of King Abdullah to the United Nations in 2008. In 2008, King Abdullah went to the United Nations, and he stand on the podium, and he addressed all the people around the world, Muslim and non-Muslim. And one of those people who came over there, the late President of the United Kingdom, Tony Blair, George Bush, was among the people who was at the United Nations to listen to this man, to this king, to this human, to talk about how we can bring the whole world together by correcting the faith of religion and put the people together as a one voice, not as a separate religion, separate beliefs. Since that time, after the United Nations, King Abdullah was pushing his vision even stronger by taking the decision of making the Center of Interfaith Dialogue in Austria in 2011. Today, we have the center is open in Austria, in Vienna, and it's under King Abdullah Interfaith Dialogue, and it's headed by Prince Saud Al-Faisal and his deputy, the Minister of Justice of Austria, Mrs. Claudia.
needless to say, the king is the true essence of the people. His attitude towards the people, and he tells them that, is that he is here to serve them. So just by that definition of his role, not only does he take on this tremendous responsibility of serving the people, but also he sets examples for the rest of us that we must look after our fellow citizens, high or low, old or young, rich or poor. And all of the efforts that he has placed in internal development are all geared towards raising the standard of living of the people of Saudi Arabia. His public receptions for the people, when they come in his diwan and his majlis, and he receives them one by one, shaking hands and receiving their requests and their interests directly from their hands, shows you that he considers himself, as I said, their servant. The other things, of course, is the tremendous projects that he has initiated, whether it is in housing, in education, in hospitals. Just yesterday, a new hospital in Riyadh was inaugurated by His Royal Highness Prince Migrim bin Abdulaziz, the second Deputy Prime Minister. Tomorrow, or rather tonight, there is going to be another inauguration of a hospital in Jeddah, the King Faisal Specialist Hospital. And in other provinces and places in the kingdom, we see this tremendous increase in the provision of health services. Education-wise, whether it is in the increase of the number of universities or the establishment of the King Abdullah University for Science and Technology, or for the scholarship program that the King has initiated and is continuing to send Saudi students to study everywhere, and to acquire the most elevated levels of skills and know-how to come back and serve their country. All of these things are for what? They're for the service of the people. And I think one of the things that is clearly important in what we think the King is doing as a people is his interest in the young people. And he has addressed them many times in speeches and in occasions. And he looks upon the young people as the greatest benefit for the society, because they bring their youthful enthusiasm to development. And as they grow older, of course, and acquire experience and wisdom and so on, the reflection of that will be for the benefit of the people.
الملك هو الله والله الله ونحن عبيد الله عز وجل. أم هذه أرجوكم تكون أهلا
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. On this happy occasion, the 8th inauguration for our beloved King Abdullah, of him becoming the King of Saudi Arabia, we would like to discuss many of the things that happened during his reign, especially in the education sector, the enlargement of the 2 holy mosques, and also the cultural aspects that he forwarded in Saudi Arabia, especially the discussion between different religions to cross the borders, and also the humanitarian side of our beloved King. When we speak about the education, King Abdullah has put his initiative for having the Saudis, the young Saudis, to study abroad
and the reason for this is that to get a better education, to have a better understanding of the world that they live in, and also to get some of the cultures that they live in, so to cross borders and have also a lot of experience that they could bring back home. So we have a very large number of young Saudis who every year go to take their education in the universities of Europe, Asia, Oceanica, and America. When it comes also to speak about the enlargement of the two holy mosques, the historical enlargement, the second one, the existing one enlargement of the mosque in Mecca or Medina, and to facilitate for the number of pilgrims that they come to Saudi Arabia. It is actually a lot of, when we look, the government of Saudi Arabia spends a lot of money in this effort to facilitate for the pilgrims and the visitors of the two holy mosques. So if we see the projects that have been taken care and the projects that already existed, we see that every year the pilgrims, they find it easier and easier to do their pilgrimage in Saudi Arabia. Also, when we look to the number of the universities in Saudi Arabia, the number of the universities in Saudi Arabia is enlarging. We're also having now universities in most of the small cities in Saudi Arabia. So education and taking the Saudi youth to a higher education level, I think this is one of the things that marks the reign of our beloved King Abdullah. And also not to just limit it to this, actually the infrastructure that is taking place, the revamp and the infrastructure and renovation that is taking place, and also the expansion and doing like King Abdullah financial city, and the projects, whether it's like the Jeddah airport, the King Abdulaziz airport that is taking place, or even the new projects that will take place in Riyadh, whether it's like Riyadh Metro, or also the railway modernization in Saudi Arabia, and also adding new lines. So there is so much is done, and I think inshallah God will give our beloved King the long life and the good health to see even further enhancement in all these areas.
أبنائي أشكركم على هالمجي من أنحاء مملكتكم الحبيبة. أبنائي أنتم رجال المستقبل إن شاء الله، وإن شاء الله ما تشوفوا من بلادكم إلا كل خير. وأوصيكم يا أبنائي بتقوى الله ووطنكم ودولتكم، لأنكم ولله الحمد أبناء رجال أعتقد وما جابوكم إلا هم أكفاء لخدمة هالدين وهالوطن وهالدولة. وعليكم يا أبنائي بالتعليم واجتهدوا، وأتمنى لكم إن شاء الله توفيق وصحة ونجاح في كل أموركم المستقبلية. وشكرا لكم وحبي وتقديري لكم ولإخوانكم، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
We as the Saudi people, we always going to be thankful for him. We always going to be praying for him, as he always asks us to pray for him, to give him more health, more life, to see more of his initiative. We love King Abdullah. We so many years of prosper. We living as a golden age, and he took us 8 years since he took over, but each year counts of 10 years of work. God bless you and God bless this country.
I say thank you. Thank you for giving us, as Saudis, the opportunity to be in this tremendous era of development and progress that you have commenced and that you have definitely stamped with your humanity and your grace and your humility. These are all tremendous examples for the rest of us.